Good afternoon, everyone. It's Kim Churches here at AAUW's headquarters in Washington, D.C. We're delighted so many of you could join us today. And before we kick off into more of the agenda for AAUW's first 2020 Vision Convening series, I have the great pleasure of being joined by our very own Kate Nielsen, who is going to talk to us today about our public policy agenda and how we're thinking about the gender agenda in this very, very important new year and new decade, where our topics are front of mind, not only for the presidential candidates, but also for the 116th Congress and your state legislatures, which for the most part are already back in session too. So we've got a lot to talk about today. So Kate, welcome, and thanks so much for joining us.
Great, thanks Kim. I'm thrilled to be here, and hello to all of you. Very excited to be with you in this role at AAUW and kicking off 2020 with lots of exciting things going on.
So with that, Kate has taken on a brand new and very expanded role here leading our public policy team, but also really getting back to the strength that is AAUW in our grassroots efforts in your municipalities, at the regional and state levels, as well as at the federal and international levels. So we'll talk a lot about that today. So maybe, Kate, we can start off with you telling us a little bit about the policies we should be thinking about in our own communities of AAUW right now as we look ahead to the election in November.
Absolutely. We have a lot of work to do and a lot of great opportunity. So we just released the 2020 Gender Agenda, which I encourage everyone to check out, but I'll briefly talk about the different policies that are part of that. I think there's some really exciting stuff and some great opportunities. So the first branch of the gender agenda is economic security, which I'm sure that all of you are very familiar with the policies that fall into this category. But just generally, those have to do with pay equity, with paid family leave and sick days, expanding and securing retirement security, protections for pregnant workers, raising the minimum wage and eliminating the tipped minimum wage, and then stopping harassment in the workplace. And we think that if you look at those policies as a comprehensive set, it really tells the stories of the protections that women need to be able to take home a fair paycheck and live a good life with their family.
And that's an enormous agenda, though. I'm tired just listening to all of that when we know how much work we have ahead. How are we prioritizing that work as we look from January to the end of this calendar year?
Great question, Kim. It really depends on what else is going on to some extent, on our own interest and excitement. So, for example, this week, despite impeachment taking up most of the air in the room, is a really big week for the Paycheck Fairness Act at the federal level. Tomorrow is the 11th anniversary of the passage of the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, which was such instrumental and important legislation that should be celebrated, and then we should take the next step to advance beyond it. And so we'll be pushing really hard in the Senate to advance the Paycheck Fairness Act this week. So that, for example, is something that's going on right now.
And you'll be out with our very own AAUW Lobby Corps on Thursday morning doing just that.
Exactly, very exciting. Cool. And for all of those who have been itching to take action remotely, we will be sending out sneak preview, an action alert coming this week so that you all can take action to encourage your senators to act on this really important bill.
And that couldn't be more timely, really, as we're looking ahead to not only just this presidential race in 2020, but really for re-elections for many folks this year in a lot of different districts around the country. And as we look at what we accomplished with the Paycheck Fairness Act last year, with bipartisan support in the House of Representatives right around this same time period, it really can your voices in this can help the Senate to really spur some action. So speaking of 2019, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what were some of your favorite moments in the policy world over the last year and sort of how that frames us well for the coming year.
Absolutely, I'd love to. Well, you just mentioned one of them, which was passage of the Paycheck Fairness Act through the House with bipartisan support last year. It was just a really great win for all Americans, but AAUW members especially, were really instrumental in that. One of my favorite stories is out of Pennsylvania, where AAUW members, I think I can say single-handedly, were responsible for getting a Republican co-sponsor on the bill. So congratulations for that tenacious activism. Really exciting. I'm also really, really proud of all of the pay equity laws that we passed at the state level last year. In 2019, we enacted 11 new laws.
Wow.
Which is about double what we've been seeing in years past. And that includes one in Alabama, which is one of only 2 states that didn't have any protections at all. So again, really, really proud of that work. And then I'm going to do one that's a little bit further back than 2019
Sure.
and a little bit earlier, more recent. So in thinking about some of my favorite wins, when Secretary DeVos was confirmed, unfortunately, AAUW came out strongly against that confirmation, but so strongly that our members actually jammed the phone lines at the Department of Education. We did a great job of educating and turning out our members to be really active on this. And there were so many calls placed that the staffers in the Department of Ed would read the script back to people when they called because they'd heard it so many times.
That is a riot. I love it.
So your activism really, it shows how many great advocates AAUW has and the power of all working together. And then the other thing that I wanted to shout out is technically happened in 2020, so I'm cheating a little bit.
Go for it.
But Virginia just ratified the Equal Rights Amendment, becoming the 38th state to do so. And this is a huge win for everyone across the country, but I just really need to shout out to our Virginia members who have been working on this forever, and they should be very, very proud of themselves and all of their hard work.
Absolutely. Proud of all of this work, obviously, to be the 38th state to pass, but really just the momentum that's building in Virginia right now after a great election, bringing a lot more women into office as well. But our AAUW members in Virginia and in states across the land have been exceedingly active over the past couple of years, and we're really, really grateful for all of your efforts. Maybe since we mentioned ERA, if you can talk a little bit about what could happen next, given that I know, was it 5 states that rescinded their initial support? So what does it mean for ERA right now?
Yeah, so the short answer is I don't know. I think that there's a couple different paths we can take. Obviously, AAUW is going to be very active at the federal level to try and get a bill passed that would rescind the pass deadline.
Yeah.
There's also another strategy to start over, but we'll be putting most of our effort into rescinding the deadline. And we will see from there. We've seen opinions from attorneys general in some states that are not favorable, but this is to some extent uncharted territory. We know that it is possible to take a long time to enact an amendment to the Constitution. That should not be a problem. It's a really important amendment. We're really excited to get it done. I have every confidence that we're going to be able to do it, especially on the backs of AAUW members who are working so hard. But it's both an unknown and exciting time.
Yeah. It's also, I mean, it's another reason why we're never a one-note Nelly at AAUW, that we're working on a lot of different issues that can help women, girls, and their families to really thrive in the U.S. Economy and in their communities, because we can't only achieve everything off of a bill or an amendment. It's going to take a lot of concerted, continued policy wins for us to really see improvements in how we all live, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's one really important tool in a bigger toolbox too. So we've got a real big year ahead. I know you're all feeling it as well. The news cycle just doesn't stop. You know what's going on. We know Iowa is just about to occur. And that'll move us forward. There's a ton of pundit chatter around this time of year where everyone seems to think they know what will happen by November. But what are you hearing and seeing that's really noteworthy around our equity issues as we think about our mission and our vision for the future?
Yeah, so more than anything, I just want to highlight how many women are involved in the process now and how exciting that is. 2018 was really a bellwether year with a record number of women both running and winning elected office. So at the federal level, there are 117 members sent to Congress, and with people who already held office, 127 members in the House and the Senate, which is just great. And then also pretty significant upticks in state legislatures as well, including in Colorado and Nevada, where majority women legislatures were sat, or majority in Nevada and in one chamber in Colorado, I should say. So I just want to emphasize that momentum, and we're still seeing it. We saw a record number of female candidates running for president this year. There's never been more than 2 in a major party, so that's really exciting. So I think we'll continue to see that momentum, and as more women and more people of color run, their ideas become part of the conversation and really move it forward in interesting and important ways. So I read just a couple minutes before I came in here that there will be the first presidential ad mentioning paid leave soon.
That's amazing.
Which is great.
I mean, think about that progress that all of you have been a part of, that those words are now on the lips of people as we think about a presidential election ahead. That's incredible.
Exactly.
In both parties.
Yep, exactly. And yeah, such a great point. And this has uptick all across the board. And the questions that are being asked of candidates, of elected officials, include the pieces of our gender agenda.
Yeah.
So they are talking about equal pay. They are talking about paid leave. They're talking about the cost of childcare. These sort of bread and butter issues that were at one point pigeonholed as women's issues, but we know are family issues,
right,
and how the day gets done.
Yeah.
Are finally being talked about. That's what I'm most excited about with this election.
Yeah, me too. I have to say, I woke up, as I know all of you did as well, on January 1st, just thinking, you know, it was nice to have a little break at New Year's, and now it's time to gear back up and stay as focused, razor focused as we can on what matters, because these are the issues, whether you live in red, purple, or blue communities across the land, whether you're in a small village or township or you're in a major metropolitan area. These are the issues that folks are talking about at their kitchen tables and as they think about doing their economic plans and budgets for their families. So these issues are front of mind, and we're going to be right there with AAUW fighting alongside of you on the issues that matter most. I have to emphasize again my gratitude to Kate for taking on this new role. Maybe you could also mention how you're hiring up right now on the team too.
Absolutely. So we currently are hiring for 2 different positions, a federal policy manager and a grassroots advocacy manager. We have some great candidates. I'm very excited to see who we eventually bring on, hopefully in the next month or so. But with those 2 hires, we'll have a really nice cohesive team to be able to dig into and advance the policies that we want and really utilize you all, our grassroots, which is what makes AAUW unique. There's a lot of organizations working on similar policies that we are, which is a wonderful thing. It's great to be a part of that. But our members and supporters are what make us unique and give us such a unique voice. And with these new hires, we'll be able to assist you all even more in even better ways with more action alerts, with more trainings, with how-to guides, help you write letters to the editor and op-eds, help you plan activities, give you various resources to really capitalize on the momentum and the skills that you already have and are already deploying.
That's great. No, this really is, and it reminds me of just a week or 2 ago, Kate and I were sitting at another large table like this one, with the Paycheck Fairness Act coalition of organizations that are all working together to push that forward to the Senate and beyond. And it was interesting as we sat there, people, you assume a lot of the organizations that are fighting for equity issues too also have the grassroots efforts, and they frankly do not. We are so blessed to have members and advocates that care about our issues in every congressional district in the U.S. And so we're counting on you to help Kate and help all of us and the team to really move forward on this gender agenda going forward. So with that, I really just want to express my thanks to Kate for being with us today. This will be taped, so if you wish to share it with your fellow members or friends, it'll be available to you on the AAUW website soon. But for now, thanks very much, Kate.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks for having me today. Thanks for inviting me along to this new challenge, and thank you to all of you. I'm really excited for the year ahead.
That's great. Terrific. Thanks, Kate. Okay, so now we are going to move ahead with our agenda in our first convening series, which is really going to tell you a little bit more about how we're thinking about this year ahead. You've just gotten a nice overview from Kate Nielsen, our very own Kate Nielsen, who's leading all of our public policy efforts on how we're thinking about this at a grassroots effort, so meaning all of you individually, of what you can be doing in your own municipalities, counties, states, regions, and at the federal level. But now we're going to talk a little bit more about, on the agenda that's on the screen here, of how we're thinking about the 19th Amendment at 100 and the Voting Rights Act at 55. Our own Gloria Blackwell will be joining me in a few minutes to talk a little bit about AAUW fellowships and programs and how they're contributing so dramatically to our mission and vision as well. We'll talk about state and regional convention season for AAUW, give you an update. Many of you have been writing in and asking how we did at the end of December on our giving and philanthropy at AAUW, and another teaser on the AAUW 5-star program. It's important to note that the next webinar will be April 14th, and we'll also combine public policy programs and some other information. We'll have a special guest as well at this one and future ones too. So let's go ahead and move on, because as we think about our work here at AAUW, all of us are so devoted to this mission. Again, this work is absolutely not partisan in any way. This is not politically motivated, but values motivated as to how we think about our vision for the future. And we have to keep moving forward to do the things we cannot think we can even possibly do, just as Eleanor Roosevelt said so wisely so long ago. And when you think about even some of the successes that Kate mentioned, who would have thought that we could have blocked the phone lines and taken down the system of the Department of Education just by all of your individual dials-ins to their phones to talk about your values and your mission for women and girls. So we have to, as AAUW, really do the things that seem impossible and make them possible together. And obviously, we've been talking a lot about the election, but there's more than, and certainly as we think about voter education, get out the vote resources, how we partner locally maybe with the League of Women Voters or Rock the Vote or other organizations on local efforts. This election, while very critically is going to be about getting everybody out to vote, there's also other ways you can participate in AAUW's mission at the branch or state level too, and we'll talk about that as we get into Gloria's remarks in a few minutes. But as you know, with the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment and the 55th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, we really at AAUW are focused completely on ensuring every voice is heard. And even now in 2020, because of gerrymandering by both parties, because of limited access in some states to the ability to vote and to vote in absentia, this becomes more difficult and harder for everyone's voice to be heard. So we're really encouraging AAUW branches to engage in these efforts and consider partnering with groups such as the League or Rock the Vote or others. Some of you are already telling us about some of your work that you're doing at the branch and state level or in your communities, and don't hesitate to share more with us by sending it to the Connect team. That's connect@aauw.org, so that we can share best practices and what works for all. As we think about the agenda that Kate just laid out, this is a good quick and dirty slide for you to remember it just in 5 steps. It's absolutely about equal pay for equal work. It's about investing in education, reducing student debt, strengthening Social Security and our retirement futures, and implementing paid leave for every American, not just for federal workers. So these are really critical issues that you're going to continue to hear on the lips of candidates for president this year, as well as for candidates for office in your own communities. And as we think about gender equity, certainly it's easiest to look at this, as it always has been at AAUW, through an economic security lens. Because frankly, this isn't pink versus blue. This isn't women versus men. And this isn't that somehow another person's piece of pie is going to be taken away if women are paid equally. But it is about taking millions of children out of poverty. It is about adding to our economy in dramatic ways and ensuring that we have more people that have a living wage in a way that they can support their families and their dreams. So we'll continue to be working on these issues because they just make sense in however you discuss them with any member of any party or any political bent in the United States today. So let's now, since we've gotten a good overview of where we are on public policy work, let's now turn to our friend Gloria Blackwell to tell us a little bit about all of the tremendous efforts that she leads here, our fellowships and grants programs, all of our programs from middle school on up through into the workforce, as well as serving as our very valued United Nations representative. So Gloria Blackwell, welcome, and thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Kim, and welcome everyone. I'm very excited to be here with you this afternoon. Our AAUW programs team is really continuing on the great work that we've been doing in bringing our salary negotiation training to communities across the U.S., both in person and online. And we're really proud to let everyone know that since we've taken over this program, we have connected and trained more than 162,000 individuals and provided them with the tools to increase their confidence to successfully negotiate a fair salary and benefits. And the fantastic news that we have is that thanks to the collaboration and teamwork here at AAUW National, we're really thrilled to get started on a second year of funding from the Coca-Cola Foundation. This grant will provide us with the opportunity to expand our salary negotiation training as well as our Empower Career workshops and expand our work to reach historically Black colleges and universities, other minority-serving institutions, and women's colleges, including their students, faculty, and alumni. Our new Work Smart opportunities that we piloted last fall in Pennsylvania, Wichita, and New York City have really turned out to be great opportunities locally. For example, since September, we've trained over 3,000 individuals in person and online in all 5 boroughs of New York City. We've also reached a really incredible milestone by training 10,000 participants in the city of Boston through our partnership with the mayor's office, one of our very first citywide partnerships. We're also continuing to explore expanded partnerships because of our incredible success in the past year. Everyone wants to be a part of Work Smart and Start Smart. That means we've also had many more opportunities with large-scale conference presentations to have a greater impact. We've trained everyone from engineers to CPAs as well as physicians. In education and training, our fellows and grantees really continue to be powerful representatives of AAUW throughout our nation and the world. I really hope you've had an opportunity to check out our online directory because this year's class of 270 recipients is living proof of their excellence. And despite a pretty grueling academic semester, nearly 70 fellows and grantees have connected with local AAUW branches or state organizations to participate in programming or just to say thank you. And we know that many more will be reaching out to you in the spring. Also coming up is AAUW's event at the UN 64th Commission on the Status of Women. We'll be hosting an expert panel discussion entitled Livelihoods and Leadership, Advancement and Opportunity for Women Post-Beijing. As many of you know, AAUW members were present during the 1995 Beijing Conference and the World Conference on Women. This year, we're celebrating the 25th anniversary of Beijing with a review of the Platform for Action. And thanks to our Coca-Cola grant, we'll also be planning a series of our Empower Career workshops. We're going to bring our career, networking, and leadership training to many communities across the country. Our new events team is busy planning the 2020 National Conference for College Women Student Leaders, affectionately known as NICWSL, at the University of Maryland at College Park. We've already selected several of our amazing women of distinction, including the New York Times award-winning author Morgan Jerkins. Nick Whistle is really extra special this year, okay, as the conference marks 35 years of bringing advocacy, leadership, and career training to thousands of college women nationwide. We hope you're spreading the word about Nick Whistle in your communities, in your professional networks. And remember, early bird registration ends February 16th. We're sure there's a deserving student in your community who would be grateful for the opportunity to attend this amazing conference. This year's conference is also adding a new STEM roundtable discussion to expand our resources for STEM attendees. Thank you all so much for your support of AAUW's programs. We know that we couldn't do it without you.
So while I have Gloria here, with her permission, can I ask you a couple follow-up?
Of course, Kim.
Thanks. So tell me a little bit, Gloria, about what you're excited about for this year, and particularly because you look at this at such a macro level and a micro level every day in your job, because you're working with our international fellows, our American fellows, and the UN, as well as working on the ground in so many cities, and working and serving as an expert speaker at regional, national, and international conferences for us on behalf of AAUW in front of thousands and thousands of humans each year. So are you feeling bullish or bearish about the year ahead? And where, maybe you can highlight on where you're getting excited about the work ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm always excited about the work that we're doing. And the one thing that I have found, particularly in the past year, is that the issues that AAUW is working on, they are global issues. And the things that we are concerned about impact women globally, that pay equity doesn't discriminate, okay, that it's found across our nation and across the world. That's why I'm excited about bringing our work once again to the United Nations. I remember our event last year, standing room only, led by Kim Churches. Exciting just to see how much information that people are eager to get. The other piece is around thinking about pay equity and economic security and the many audiences that I've been in front of. And no matter if you're a nonprofit employee, entry level, or if you're a physician earning a six-digit factor salary, it's amazing. Everyone is impacted by the pay gap. And so professors, to frontline workers, to retail workers. I'm having the same conversation across this country with people about the pay gap. But the really true benefit is that I'm understanding that the work that we are doing has been reaching so many people, and the hunger for it and the desire for it is really palpable. And that Work Smart Online has really allowed us to reach out and provide access to opportunity for so many people who have not had access to these tools. Right. And that the testimonials that we are receiving from women who are able to negotiate a higher salary, to how excited they are, how grateful they are that this information is available, and how at the end of the day, it's really about them having an opportunity to be fairly paid.
That's right.
To be able to support their families, to be able to pay down that terrible student debt. Those are all things that have been having an impact, and our success has really been due to the fact that we've put ourselves out there and we've provided these resources, and that it's an issue that has really taken fire.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I'm sort of speaking the witness here, but something you and I always say when we leave either Work Smart or Start Smart presentation or one of our Empower workshops, or we come off this stage and folks come up to talk with us about that content or other, what's the number one thing you hear from people when they come up to meet you afterwards?
Can you tell me when the next event is going to happen?
That's it.
The number one question. Yeah. And so we have been in front of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, many of whom have not been introduced to AAUW before. And they're excited about the work that we're doing, and they're excited that we brought it to them, but they always want to know what's next. And that tells us that the work that we are doing is filling a void. And what we'd like to do is to continue to expand that work. And in order to expand that work, we need to have funding available to make sure that we're able to bring it to your communities. I know many of you have asked how these opportunities can be expanded. We need funding in order to make that happen. And the women and men who attend our events, not just women who are coming to our events, the fact that so many of them have not heard this information before is something that really also tells us that we're filling a void.
Absolutely. And I think that face-to-face, whether you're doing it online through the very creative curriculum online, or you're taking Work Smart or an Empower workshop or something else live in an audience, you're engaging with people on issues that matter, and they're getting information that they can apply right away the next day. But that hunger for more of understanding how to move up the career ladder, how to overcome sexism in the office when it's occurring, how to advocate on behalf of yourself with your employer or with your elected and appointed officials. These are things that Gloria and I and our colleagues hear regularly, and the only way we can expand this work is with more resources and more partnerships such as the ones we've created thus far. Well, I literally could not do my job without Gloria Blackwell's extraordinary leadership, partnership, and friendship in this. She is the epitome of the word colleague with a capital C. I'm honored to work with you, and thank you so much for being with us here today.
It has been my pleasure, and it's been a pleasure to be here at AAUW under your extraordinary leadership.
Thank you. Thanks, Gloria. Okay, friends, so let's now also move in to the next part of our agenda today. And that is to give you just a little bit of a sneak on how we're thinking about AAUW's in, out, back in again work in making sure we can move more girls and women into higher paying STEM fields. As an example, Gloria also participated and spoke at the International Conference at the Society of Women Engineers in front of thousands of humans, talking about our past research and our ongoing programs in STEM. I recently was part of AAAS program. I also spoke at the Grace Hopper Conference in Orlando, Florida this year with 25 or 30,000 of my best friends, and this very week, on Friday of this week, I'll be out in California at the invitation, and they're paying our freight to attend a summit, a leadership summit on women in agriculture and farming. And as you think about those issues, it's not just biologists and scientists and doctors and engineers. There are so many fields that make up STEM. So what we at AAUW are looking at here are for some of those differentiators. There are so many players working on STEM, but some areas are stalling out a bit. Some areas women are entering and staying in the field. And then frankly, in some areas, women go in and then leave because of discrimination, environments, and cultures that don't allow them to thrive. And so we are working on a landscape review right now, and thanks to Gloria, our policy team, our research team, and our communications team, we're going to be pulling together roundtables of experts outside of AAUW, really to get to the heart of what's missing on how we can engage and really retain more women in STEM fields. So more to come on that, but just a little bit of a sneak preview. I should also note we will be producing by end of year a report, thanks to an investment from the Arconic Foundation in New York, a report on women in manufacturing and high attrition rates there and what can be done. So more on that soon too. So all of this is to say we are trying to find those magical keys to success at AAUW, where we can be distinctive in the ways that you heard from Kate Nielsen earlier today, about the power of our grassroots advocacy, but it's also the power of what we can do at a grassroots level around our fellowships, around Nick Whistle, around our programs like Start Smart, Work Smart, and more. And those keys to success is about that network that all of us at AAUW are pulling on the same rope. Now, I have received a ton of questions about AAUW's fundraising as we closed out 2019. And so I do have some good news here. One, I know many were interested in hearing more about the largest AAUW national board match in history. So we'll give you some information about that. Gloria just shared some information with you about the extraordinary new and renewed investment from Coca-Cola. We're thrilled they've renewed their $500,000 grant for a program this calendar year, focusing again on women's economic empowerment with a focus on HBCUs and college campuses. So really enormous congrats and thanks to all of you who helped spread the word about Work Smart Online and helped us reach our goal to exceed over 102,000 humans impacted by this grant. Thus far, we're very pleased with the calendar year fundraising returns. That board match I spoke of was pivotal to our success. Thanks to members and AAUW supporters and individual donors' efforts across the country, we raised $33,000 on Giving Tuesday alone. And for a little context here, there's a lot more players in the Giving Tuesday world. There are literally hundreds of thousands of nonprofits pushing out #Giving Tuesday. Last year, we only raised $13,000. So we raised $20,000 more just a year to year on a single day. And that's an impressive increase given how many more nonprofits are pushing Giving Tuesday. So thank you all for helping us to raise funds on this important day. As you can see in the graph on the slide in front of you, last year by December 31, we had brought in 2,223 unique gifts. This year, we brought in 2,865 gifts. That's a 28% increase. And typically nonprofits are happy if they can get to, 5 or a 10% increase. So actually on the number of donors, that's a great increase. Last year, our end of year campaign, meaning all of the direct mail pieces you receive in your mailboxes or emails from us, urging you to stay in our fight for a future that has a vision for equity for all. We raised last year $210,000 by December 31, and this year we raised $242,000 by those year-end appeals. That's a 15% increase. It shows not only, again, that we're increasing our base of support, but that our issues are resonating as we move into a new decade. I want to pay special thanks and special gratitude to all of the AAUW branches that are shifting their branch giving from fellowships and grants or the Eleanor Roosevelt Fund or the Legal Advocacy Fund to our greatest needs. Greatest needs or unrestricted funding gives us at AAUW the ability to respond rapidly and effectively to all emerging gender equity issues. In 2020, for example, we'll be vigilant about pending Supreme Court decisions, further attacks that we know are coming on Title IX, and all election-related issues. But these dollars provide that flexibility we need to have immediate impact, garner visibility for the organization, which is so important in this competitive climate and in this election year. Our Legacy Circle continues to grow in great part and thanks to our wonderful Legacy Circle leadership team that shares the benefits of the Legacy Circle program with members across the nation. I hope all of you will consider joining this amazing group of committed supporters of AAUW, and I too am proud to be a member of the Legacy Circle. With all of this said, and with the great progress we made by December 31, AAUW still needs your help to make it to the finish line, the end of our fiscal year on June 30th. If you or your branch is still mulling over some funding decisions, we really hope you'll consider investing in our Greatest Needs Fund or to one of our mission-related areas of focus, such as economic security, leadership, or education and training. But thank you so much for all you do individually and collectively to empower women and girls through your giving. I'd also be remiss if I didn't remind you of the AAUW 5-Star program that's underway now. We've heard from the membership and are extending the deadline for another year because we know more time was requested, but we are promoting branches that attain stars throughout the year. We highly encourage branches and states to participate and ensure all of you, this is not as cumbersome as it may look on paper. Many branches are already doing this great work, and frankly, all we want to do is recognize and thank you for that work by achieving 5 stars. We want to make sure you get the credit for all of the good efforts you're doing. Plus, we truly know and believe that when we're sharing our best practices and things that work with programs, activities in our communities, et cetera, that exchange of information, that exchange of case studies is really useful for all of us. I know I've learned a lot more about some of the grassroots get out the vote efforts, and I've benefited from the conversations I've heard from members and branch leaders all over the country to help us put together toolkits for others. We saw that with the Kansas and Missouri model, for example, that cross-border information sharing can occur as well. So we really encourage you to keep moving forward with the 5-star program, and you can find information on our website and in Membership Matters. Now, I do want to make a comment about your story, our legacy. And our members obviously have had a deep commitment to this work. I talked about this in our December 2019 webinar, and now is an opportunity for you to begin contributing to your story. So you will be seeing samples of answers to this upcoming question in additions of our webinars and in Mission and Action. But the first question we're posing in the Your Story, Our Legacy feature in 2020 is, during your membership with AAUW, what moment in time made you the most proud? Now, you might want to think about working in a particular lobby corps where you were able to get more bipartisan support for a state or federal bill. It might have been a program that brought together parts of the community where you live that had never come together on these issues. It could be a tech-savvy one-day program that you know is having impact on girls in your community. It could be efforts around getting out the vote in 2018, or it could be any number of fantastic social and gatherings with like-minded individuals within your branch and within your AAUW membership that have really made you most proud. So please consider contributing your story to Your Story, Our Legacy by answering this first question ahead. None of this work, as you heard from Gloria, as you heard from Kate, and as you've heard from me repeatedly, and I'll continue to repeat it, none of this work can be done without all of us having our hands in and working together. All of us are doing this work, whether you're in Tennessee or in Washington State. If you're in southern Florida on a beach, or you're up in New Hampshire preparing for the primaries. If you're in Arizona or in Hawaii or Alaska or in the great state of Texas, all of us need to be pulling together on the gender agenda to make sure we're moving forward, not backwards, on the issues that matter most to us. I know together we can continue to do this. It's a hard agenda with a lot of work ahead, but we're thrilled you're in the fight with us and fighting for a future we can be proud of for ourselves, for our daughters, nieces, and friends, grandchildren, and for the nation's women and children writ large. We're thrilled you could join us today, and I'll now open it up for any questions or comments, and you can feel free to add those in at your leisure. There was a question about when the United Nations CSW meetings are meeting. Gloria, I believe that's March 9th through the 20th in New York. Is that right?
Yes, March 9th through the 20th, and AAUW's event will be on March 12th at 8:30 a.m.
Great. There is a question which is asked quite frequently about reproductive choice not considered an economic security issue. It absolutely is. And if you look at all of our public policy priorities, which can be found on the website, reproductive choice has been and continues to be a part of our portfolio. That said, because there are so many other organizations where it is their primary work, such as Planned Parenthood and NARAL and others, we support them more as opposed to competing with them on that, more as tertiary support, not primary support. We lead the Paycheck Fairness Act Coalition at AAUW. On pay equity, we can be a true leader. On reproductive choice, more of the nation is going to turn to leaders at Planned Parenthood and NARAL for their primary support on those issues. But as I said, reproductive choice is still considered very much part of AAUW's advocacy. There's a question about our Your Story, Your History project launch. I will have to get back to you on that. I know we're just now beginning to collect questions, but the goal would be to share stories throughout the course of the year, and we'll be seeing that coming out probably by the April 14th webinar. We'll have some initial thoughts on that we can share, and then we'll be putting that all together throughout the course of the year. There's a question about gun safety being a public health issue. We do not work directly on gun safety issues. I can tell you as an individual human being, this is an issue definitely for me, that is as a mother, as a community member that I work on. But again, there are at least 8 major national organizations working on gun safety and prospective gun control laws to make us all safer. And so it does not stay within our realm. We simply cannot, with a small team and a small budget, work on every single issue facing all of us in society today. There's a question about the next significant AAUW research report. Well, we just put out limiting our livelihoods, and we're still getting media inquiries about sexual harassment in the workplace and what that means as it compounds over time for human beings. So that definitely has just been released in November of 2019. As I mentioned earlier, we did receive funding for a new report, which will be out later this year, on women in manufacturing and how roles for going into higher paid roles in 21st century advanced manufacturing, how we can attract and retain more women in those fields that have been traditionally held by men. So that's the most immediate research report that will be coming out, but we're also going to be working on some potential partnerships around some STEM research too, which more to come on that soon. There is a question of why we're using the language greatest needs rather than unrestricted support. Frankly, because unrestricted is typically what's used by bean counters and green visors and accountants and financial managers, like the way that I think about it. And it really has not resonated with the average human being of understanding it. But when you think about the fact that I am overhead, that Gloria, when she's not working on fellowships, is overhead as well, that you want strong leaders doing this work, we definitely do focus on the greatest needs and the areas where we believe and know, after looking at almost 400 equity organizations working on behalf of women and girls, where AAUW can shine and really prosper and move forward on our mission and our vision for the future. There's a question about the current AAUW staff size, and I should tell you our current budget, while it had swollen to almost $25 million. It is now a $16 million annual budget, and we have 45 staff currently at AAUW from a high of about 110. And that is so that we can make sure we're staying within our budget and running budgets that are based in reality on revenues and expenses. There's a question about midlife divorce and economic security. Absolutely, that is in keeping with our economic security issues, and particularly as women, much more than men, go in and out of the workforce to take care of children, spouses or partners or elders or other members of their community. And so those issues are tied within the simple truth, as well as within limiting our livelihoods and many of our other research reports, policy agendas, and programs. There's a question about, I'm assuming this is about corporate support. It's a question about sponsors for WorkSmart and StartSmart. We really are working with about 1,000 corporations, with about 100 to 150 on a regular basis. But again, as I can tell you, in working with corporations my entire career, they're hit up by hundreds and hundreds of organizations on a daily basis. So we are working very, very hard to make sure that we can meet corporations where they are on their agenda. It's not just about our agenda, and working not just to partner with them on things like WorkSmart and StartSmart, but also on NIC Whistle, also on other educational training programs. We've had many cities and corporations that are very interested in making sure we can reach to women who have not and will not go to college, that are low-wage earners that really need to learn skills to protect their own economic security. And as we think about growing inequities in this nation with haves and have-nots, that work becomes all the more critical. There is a question from your national board member, Peggy Cabanas, about our efforts to reach younger women. We talked about this at the last opportunity and at the last opportunity to join a webinar in December. I will have more information on that in April as we are kicking off from your national office a new effort called the Equity Network, which is being piloted here and in New York City. We cannot take on more than that with a smaller staff right now, and that is where we have the funding. And it comes out of the 8 focus groups, of the results from those 8 focus groups. And we're kicking that off with events in February and March in New York and Washington, D.C. Oh, there's a question about the website update. Yes, we have the overall design, as I've shared with you all in the fall, both in October and in December. We're thrilled we're going to be able to see that by the time the snow melts in a lot of our communities here. We are now loading content into it. It is a long, laborious process, and we're trying to keep our overhead costs on this as low as possible by not contracting with too many folks outside. But we do have third-party support on this to help us in our efforts there. There is, let's see here, if there's any other questions coming up. There is a question about how to engage a newly elected mayor about working on it with either city employees or others. I would suggest, rather than approaching a new mayor and his or her team with what our agenda is to first determine what a mayor or council person's agenda is. What are the issues that matter most to them as they're thinking about their agenda, and find ways to collaborate on that first. If we come in too quickly sometimes with brand new elected officials, they don't hear us entirely. So it's much better to really get an understanding of what mayors, council people, governors, state legislatures are thinking about, what their priorities are, and then look to partner on them, and then move into initiatives around economic security or other issues. I should also note that there are, in addition to this convening series, which will be running regularly throughout the course of the year, there are many state and regional conventions taking place March through the summer, March 2020 through about June, July 2020 as well. And you'll be able to see those on the website as well. So with that, I will pause and see if there's any additional questions. And if not, this will be taped should you wish to re-listen to the audio or see the video portion, which will be available, of just Kate Nielsen and me, or watch the entirety of this convening as part of our 2020 vision ahead at AAUW. So for now, I want to thank you, and thank you all so much for participating today, for all of your hard work in your communities at the state, national, and international levels on behalf of AAUW. We sincerely could not do it without your support. Thanks so much for joining us today.